Hey guys, Nerdarchy Ted here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with some of my esteemed colleagues.
Dave.
Nate.
And today we're going to do Dungeons and Dragons Monsters the Death Knight.
The Death Knight. Always one of my favorites.
Indeed.
I fell in love. It was love at first saw.
Yes. Lord Soth the Death Knight. Yeah, I remember reading those books. It was fantastic.
Well, and oddly enough, in 5th edition, they pretty much just use his picture and, do a blurb about
Lord Soth.
Lord Soth.
He's pretty much, I would say, the archetype for most people that play.
He's iconic. So,
So you've got this character that is kind of your, divine / martial lich. You've got super undead, super unkillable.
well, it says right in the description, a Death Knight is a paladin that failed his oaths and never found redemption before dying.
Right.
So when Death Knights are either going to be looking for that redemption still, or they're really like, no, I don't care.
Still don't care.
Yeah. So you made me all icky and skeletal, not caring.
So as a broad perspective, you can easily use him as just a destructive encounter. If you've got an average party of 5 characters at 12th level, he can begin to start mowing through their ranks. But if you've got 4 players, you can start using him as a moderate encounter at 14th to 15th level as just a guy.
So you're saying at 10th to 12th, he could be like the unkillable villain kind of encounter.
Absolutely. But from the other side of the perspective, you could totally use him as, like, not really your villain, but a mobile threat that you're constantly toying with, his oath, and sometimes he's snapping and attacking your party. Other times you're trying to just role play with him to try and convince him to atone. So you've got,
So the conflicted Death Knight
right.
could be a high amount of role playing, but also that threat of he may decide that being Death Knight's really cool.
Well, you might just
Back and forth.
You might have one that his brain is twisted. He's been converted into this evil, chaotic, thing that he doesn't want to be. I mean, if he was a legitimate paladin who really cared about his oaths and wanted to do good, and by some twist of perversion, he failed in his oath, he then died and was brought back.
There's no if about it. At some point, he was that.
Well,
you don't get tricked in a sense of you could get led down that path, but it's the path you choose.
If you started as a paladin, that you upheld those things. There was something that drew you to be a paladin in the first place, and it's not enough to want to be a paladin. Some god somewhere has to go, you're my champion.
All right. Well, so then a portion of him never wanted to go down the path that he went down. So he wants to, as bizarre as he wants to feel sorry, he wants to atone, and another portion of him doesn't. So you've got that conflicted mind, and the PCs are, the players are dealing with that. So at some point in time, he might attack him. At other points in times, they're trying to help him.
Well, yeah, the Death Knight can be a really complex character, and with many layers to it. For one, he may still uphold some of those vows that he may not completely forsake them all. There may still be ones that are really important to him. Well, he could still be honorable. He could still believe in honorable combat, or maybe he has a set of rules that he follows and will not break them.
What if you use this guy as as a villain, but he won't kill? Like, he'll drop players left and right, but he won't let them die. As a divine,
like defeating them,
he'll defeat them.
Well, I mean, that would be something where they're set against his purpose, perhaps, or whatever he's got going on as a villain. Like, he's probably got some kind of plan, maybe to not be a Death Knight anymore, but at the same time, there was reasons he became a Death Knight. So it's kind of like his own pride and arrogance, or his own prejudices against whatever reason he broke one of the oaths.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't think forsaking your vows as a paladin is enough to come back as a Death Knight. You have to be a bad dude or do that, as the case may be. So, like, with the no killing, I could see him going, you know what, you are beneath me. I will not end your life. It is too great of an honor. And, you know, come back when you're better, kid, kind of thing.
That's true.
You know, so, but, you know, I can't see him being, like, pacifist opposed to killing, on the other hand.
Yeah, I could see it from a direction from that perspective.
No, I was thinking more along the lines of he's got no problems with violence, but he stops it at, you know,
more like
officially
dueling.
death. Right. So, I don't know, it just...
Well, to me, I kind of like go, well, then he probably wasn't really bad enough to be raised back as a Death Knight. Like, you got to be really doing some bad things, like, I mean, or does he torture people from an inch from death and they go, I'm done with them? You know, is he raping people left and right? But I'm not going to kill them. Like, it's incongruent to me.
Maybe he's leaving that swath of terror and violence, in his wake, but it's this close. You know, he's torturing people into madness, but won't release them into death. You know. So, I mean, it's technically possible to be that dark and evil.
Well, I feel at that point you're accidentally killing people along the way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely, yeah.
Not if you're a master of
it. Perhaps. But he no longer can heal people because it says strictly, they can't use healing magic.
That's important. Being that they're undead.
Well, I don't think, not for this edition, I don't think. That there isn't the same...
It's not positive, negative energy anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just being undead, radiant damage doesn't necessarily mean that much, per se. But no, they're spellcasters. They actually have a decent spell list to bring to bear. They get 3 attacks around.
It's vicious.
They're resistant to magic. Death Knights are the real deal. I mean, you don't have to just take them out of the book, too. You can reskin... you can reskin them a little bit and add racial characteristics.
Right.
We've even done it. We talked about in one of our Game Master Tips videos
about Winterlord.
About the Winterlord, who's ancient dragonborn, who's actually become a Death Knight. And really, it's just taking the dragonborn and just adding there's a couple abilities from it.
Right into here.
And just dropping it onto the Death Knight and saying, oh, yeah, by the way, he looks draconic.
Right.
His skeleton is different than the other guys.
One of these things just doesn't belong here.
Yeah, you just thought he was wearing a dragon helm. He isn't.
I've also read, I forget which Forgotten Realms book it was, but they introduced a character that was basically a Death Knight or undead paladin. And he was lawful good, but whatever, he couldn't rest because he had something to do. Yeah, so you could go that route too. You could do an undead paladin that isn't evil. Mm-hmm. as a plot device.
Right.
One of the interesting things about the Death Knight, like you briefly talked about it in this edition, is they don't die. They don't die until they fix what screwed them up in to begin with. So, your party could defeat him, but he's coming back.
All right, see you guys in 5 minutes. I'm gonna take a rest.
You got to hope he's not holding a grudge. The Death Knight is an implacable foe. In 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, in like with every other monster, there is a win condition. For all those video game heads out there. Like with a lich, it's like, all right, yeah, you have to defeat them, and you have to break that phylactery, and hopefully your lich is pretty dumb and leaves it out in the open. Not like this guy's lich. He's creating a demi-plane inside a demi-plane and hiding it there in the midst of a million duplicates.
Most likely, most liches would do that. Yeah, but let's say you actually find it after all that adventuring to find the phylactery to kill the lich. You can break it somehow.
But with this thing here, regardless of how much you break, how much you destroy, how much you whatever, he don't care. He's still coming back.
You have to convince him what he did was wrong, essentially.
Can you say you're sorry?
and have him care about it.
Right. Yeah.
Because, I mean, ultimately, like, the most famous of them all, Lord Sloth, he was so evil that he was sent to, like, he caused a cataclysm. He caused, Kryn to basically break. That was his fault, sort of. And then he went and murdered his second wife and child that he wasn't supposed to have to begin with.
And he also had his first wife murdered so that he could be with his second wife.
And then he gets sent to Ravenloft, and after spending some time there, don't like the powers that be Ravenloft kick him out because he was too evil?
Because eventually he said, you know what, I absolutely did everything wrong, and it was evil, and it was bad, and I would do it again.
You're like, we can't really torment you here anymore.
Yeah.
So if you're so bad, so evil, that Ravenloft says, nah, just get out. We're done with you.
I did actually find out that legally another company had gotten the licensing right to Ravenloft.
Oh, really?
And they were using it, but they didn't have the rights to Dragonlance, so they're like, so Soft basically got written out of Ravenloft for that reason, because what? But
Well, until you said that, it looked seamless to me.
Oh, it absolutely did, because there'd be one power that is even more evil than the dark powers of Ravenloft, and that is lawyers and litigation.
Yes.
So Death Knights, guys, give me a spin. How can these guys out there use a Death Knight in their game and not be cliche or boring?
Well, pretty much until 15th, 16th level, you probably shouldn't use a Death Knight.
Well, I mean, if you're going to use
unless he's all the way over there in a fight, fighting like an army.
With this guy here, you're talking about him being a villain or a major player in your game. So I mean, you're going to have to definitely
hopefully he's not somebody's flunky.
If he is,
you're boned.
Then you're looking at like a 20th level encounter somewhere down the line for his boss.
So you've got this guy who is obviously you're going to have to be encountering minions of undead and other dark creatures that are his servants and flunkies long before you get to him. So I mean, this is a major story arc of dealing with a Death Knight. You don't want to just have this guy as a random encounter. So what do you see as a new spin, or how to use this guy in a unique way?
Okay, so you can actually use him at any level, I'm going to say, but
okay.
let's break it down. Let's look at this. What is a Death Knight? He is the antithesis of the Paladin. He is the uber anti-Paladin, which, I mean, if you wanted to make him sicker, you could give him anti-Paladin abilities.
Right.
But, but more than that, he was always a leader. He's a leader of men. He probably still can be, but even more so, he's a leader of the undead now as well.
Right.
What if the horde of undead is about to plague your kingdom, and this guy is at the head of it? Now, just suppose the king's advisor or the king himself somehow knows there is no way to make this guy go away, aside from saying, "Oh, I was wrong." So maybe your players could encounter him as an envoy and have to go to parlay with him. Perhaps they have to do something for him in order for him to skip over the kingdom. Like, you can't, like, there's no beating him. That's already been taken off the table, right? So now you're beholden him to go basically be his errand boy, and perhaps like it could be this reoccurring thing where you have to do things for him, as he almost becomes like your patron.
God, that's sick.
Yeah, so you could be the kind of like, go ahead and convince these other people to surrender, basically, like, or I'll destroy everything.
You become like the Silver Surfer for Galactus.
Like, the end is near, the end is coming.
Or it could just be that he's got his own, his own motivations, his own plot, and really the kingdom just happened to be in his way, but maybe he didn't actually care about the kingdom. But there's a tomb there with something in it that he needs, because maybe because chances are they are still looking for release. It's just if they're looking enough to go, all right, I was wrong, you guys are right, but you're talking about strong personalities, so strong that they're willing to forsake their sacred oaths. So there's a good chance that they are not willing to admit they were wrong, even if it costs them their immortal soul and being undead forever. So like they might be like, you know what, screw you guys, I got another way around this. And he'd be like, well, there's this tomb in this kingdom, that's what I really want, and I'm willing to lay waste to the whole kingdom to get it. Why don't you guys go get that for me, and I can move on.
Wow, that's pretty sick and twisted there, Dave.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he isn't coming back later as an actual villain to fight with the PCs.
Of course,
It's just an introduction.
Well, because
That was the handshake. Okay?
yeah, this was his step 1 through 5 of his master plan kind of thing.
Of his 5-year plan.
Of his 5-year plan.
Of my 5-century plan.
Yeah, the 5-century plan. When you're undead and you live forever, you got to think long term.
If you really want to mess with your players, like introduce it through like multiple story arcs. So if you're running more than one campaign, do it to here, so that if you have any players that are in both games, or you have people watching, they keep seeing this reoccurring villain, and make note in the second and third instance that he's got the item that this other group gave him.
Yeah.
So that it's like, okay, well, maybe he's, it's odd items, but they're being shaped into like his armor. Mm-hmm. So you get this goblet, or you get this sword, or you get this platter, and they're being worked into his armor. So you see that there's some kind of overt change going on, and what the heck is that gonna be?
What about this too? Like, so suppose what if the reason why you were selected to be part of the envoy was because you ran afoul of the king somehow? He's like, well, you guys can go either talk to this guy, or we're gonna have to execute you. And you're like, oh. And like,
Are you getting me killed anyway?
Are you kidding me? Like, and like, there's this dramatic scene where the party is leaving the safety of the walls of the city, and there's just this vast array of undead army before them. The sky is full of gloom. The ravens are circling. You hear the baying of wolves in the distance, and here you have your six dudes with the white flag marching out there.
Please don't kill me.
Oh man, we're so boned. We are so boned. Why did you have to get caught in the king's daughter's bedchamber? For the love of God, couldn't you just kept it in? The whorehouse is perfectly fine, and we're swimming in gold. But no, I love the princess. And the whole time, as you approach, the sea of undead just begins to part, and you have this figure up on the hill with his battle standard, which is
obviously riding an undead horse.
Oh, absolutely! If not a nightmare itself.
That's true as well.
And it just sitting astride the horse, and his eyes just burning through you the whole time. Every once in a while, something undead brushes up against you as you're moving forward. You hear the chattering of teeth. The moans and the groans, and the stench of death is all about you.
And then he's like, "Please sit."
Yeah, and maybe
can I bring
skeletons.
You something to eat.
No. Maybe he's like, maybe he does have you sit, and he raises his hand, and like skeletal chairs like rise from the ground.
Oh, that'd be pretty hot. Now you need to do this so I can see it happen. Yeah.
So, there's
Preferably
just some
not
idea.
tonight's session.
There's just some ideas that I was
That could happen. That could still happen tonight. After that, I don't really think I could top that imagery. But there definitely a lot
you
of...
can try turn undead, martial undead, unless the Death Knight is incapacitated. It and undead creatures of its choice within 60 feet of it have advantage on saving throws features that turn undead.
That's only an advantage.
Yeah,
it's only advantage.
Is that a charisma or a wisdom save? For him, he's got a +9 or a +10. That's
my third level cleric. Whee!
That's the Death Knight out of the book, not if he's special.
Yeah, that's the non-special shiny one.
Which you're not fond of just right out of the book. So
if you're gonna have a super villain, why have a lame one?
Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
The random roll stuff you can do for villainous options makes the villain more than just whatever you could get out of the book or whatever you can make out of a character, because they always have something interesting and special about them.
So if you want to try and top Dave's awesome imagery here, you can put that in the comments below. While you're doing that, go ahead and click like, share, and subscribe.
You guys can find us over at nerdarchy.com.
You can also join the conversation over at Reddit.
So until next time, stay nerdy. He doesn't want to be. I mean, if he was a legitimate paladin who really cared about his oaths and wanted to do good, and by some twist of perversion, he failed in his oath. He then died and was brought
Well,
back.
there's
as
no
his-
if about it. At some point, he was that.
Well, not
You don't get tricked in a sense of you could get led down that path, but
Okay,
it's the
well,
path you choose.
If you started as a paladin, that you upheld those things. There was something that drew you to be a paladin in the first place, and it's not enough to want to be a paladin. Some god somewhere has to go, "You're my champion."
All right. Well, so then a portion of him never wanted to go down the path that he went down.
And do a blurb about
Lord Soft.
Lord Soft.
Well, he's pretty much I would say the archetype for most people that play.
He's iconic. So
So you've got this character that is kind of your, divine / martial lich. You've got super undead, super unkillable.
well, it says right in the description, a Death Knight is a paladin that failed his oaths and never found redemption before dying.
Right.
So when Death Knights are either going to be looking for that redemption still, or they're really like, no, I don't care.
Yep, still don't care.
Hey guys, Nerdarchy Ted here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with some of my esteemed colleagues.
Dave.
Nate.
And today we're going to do Dungeons & Dragons Monsters, the Death Knight.
The Death Knight. Always one of my favorites.
Indeed.
I fell in love. It was love at first saw.
Yes. Lord Soft the Death Knight. Yeah, I remember reading those books. It was fantastic.
Well, and oddly enough, in 5th edition, they pretty much just used his picture.
Him as, not really your villain, but a mobile threat that you're constantly toying with, his oath, and sometimes he's snapping and attacking your party. Other times you're trying to just role play with him to try and convince him to atone. So you've got,
So the conflicted Death Knight
right.
could be a high amount of role playing, but also that threat of he may decide that being Death Knight's really cool.
Well, you might just
Back and
have,
forth.
You might have one that his brain is twisted. He's been converted into this evil, chaotic, thing that he.
Yeah. So you made me all icky and skeletal. Not caring.
So as a broad perspective, you can easily use him as just a destructive encounter. If you've got an average party of 5 characters at 12th level, he can begin to start mowing through their ranks. But if you've got 4 players, you can start using him as a modern encounter at 14th to 15th level as just a guy.
So you're saying at 10th to 12th he could be like the unkillable villain kind of encounter.
Absolutely. But from the other side of the perspective, you could totally use him